Good morning, everyone. Nancy Merrill is ill today and sends her regrets. My name is Joe Adan, and I am your service associate. Please take your seats and silence your phones. Please be advised we will be recording the service. Now, please join me in reading the centering thought. Go with relentless optimism. Now, please gently your hearts and minds while our pianist, Karen Fallingstad, begins the prelude.
I'm playing for you a piece that by Hani Arani, who is a composer that my son introduced me to. He lives in Berlin, and she played in Berlin. And I was inspired by her texture and her harmonies, and I've been using it in my class teaching and getting my students to improvise in similar ways. And I think you'll enjoy it. She's imitating kind of Philip Glass's composition. That's why it's called Glass. And there's just different fluttering rhythms and voicings, and it's basically, hopefully, quite meditative. Thank you.
That's just beautiful. Thank you. Welcome to the Sunday morning hybrid worship service of Summit UU Fellowship. We are a liberal religious community bound together by shared principles, drawn from world religions, humanist teachings, nature and science, philosophy, and personal practices. We are a religion of love and inclusion. The mission of Summit is to commit ourselves to building a more compassionate, just, and sustainable world. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to Summit and would like to know more about us, we invite you to go to our website, summituuf.org, click on the visitors button, and fill out the online connection card, and someone will follow up with you. And now we have an announcement from Sandy.
Thanks, Joe. Just wanted to bring you up to date on the pledge drive. We have a slide that's coming up. So we are going to end the drive officially next Sunday. So the few of you who have not gotten your paperwork in, we really would appreciate if you get a chance to do that this week so we can count you and we could push that thermometer up over the top. We're at about 82% of the goal. So another 45,000 or so is needed, which is a lot of money, but there's still about 15 people that said that they're going to pledge, and we haven't gotten their paperwork yet. So we'll hope for the best. And to conclude next Sunday, we'll celebrate with some nice cakes that Jenny Saar, the professional baker and speaker today, has promised us, okay? So make sure you deserve your cake and eat it too.
Thanks, Sandy. Thanks for your leadership of that very important part of the Summit life. And please, let's make that final push to close the gap. And now our land acknowledgement. For millennia, the Kumeyaay have been part of this land. The land has been nourished, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of Summit Fellowship, we acknowledge this legacy, we promote this balance and harmony, and we find inspiration from this land, the land of the Kumeyaay. Oh, okay, we have sorry to miss an announcement by Al. Al, come on up, Al. Sorry about that. It's okay.
Good morning. Yes, I want to, there was some confusion last week about this. The Santee Methodist Church is considering putting on a call zone at their church for the elderly and the homeless of Santee, and they would like some help. If you want more information, the minister, Reverend Jamie Pangman, is handling it, and his information is in the e-news that came out last Thursday, and so if you are considered on that, and so they're trying to, so thank you.
Thanks, Al. Actually, he helped me get organized up here, but I think Al's mission to help, the unsheltered is just is very important, and so thanks, Al, for doing that. I'd like to announce our speakers today. Jenny Saar has attended Summit for 17 years. As a toddler and beyond, her creativity developed in multiple directions, in drawing, sculpture, design, and multimedia. And after a period of professional cooking and recipe development, she returned to her art, earning a living through logo design, murals, and sculptures in Tanzania. Safari companies, lodges, and national parks still boast of Jenny's fine talent. She returned to California after reuniting with her high school sweetheart, to whom she is still married. And I want to say personally, if you haven't gone to one of Jenny's gin and tonic sundowners, you're really missing out. So, auction event. Remember that for the auction event. And our other speaker, Alix Hart, is a metals artist and goldsmith designer. She is an advocate an activist for responsible sourcing and for love of nature. Her work celebrates the beauty of natural forms and materials and champions evolution in the natural world. Alix's experience includes an MFA, designing Karl Lagerfeld and Givenchy fashion jewelry, and master goldsmithing for Barbara Heinrich Studios. In every way, she tries to reduce the negative impact of her life on the planet while working in leadership to help improve the world, living in service for the greater good. And personally, I'd like to say, if you're not on Alix's Facebook page, you really should subscribe. It actually caused Renee and I to think about having our wedding bands redone and having her as the artist recast them. So we're very fortunate to have these two very talented people speaking with us today. And now Alix will read the chalice lighting.
Each morning, we must hold out the chalice of our being to receive, to carry, and to give back.
Thanks, Alix. Let's join together and sing Muted if on Zoom in both English and Spanish to reflect the multilingual culture of our region, our UU hymn, immediately followed by our UU aspiration.
The truth is sacred. Let us be afraid. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration.
The reading is, and I have felt a presence that disturbs me with the joy of elevated thoughts, a sense sublime of something far more deeply interfused, whose dwelling is the light of setting suns and the round ocean and the living air, emotion and a spirit that impels all living things, all objects of thought, and rolls through all things.
And now we'll have our time for all ages with Mary Carter Vale.
Good morning. Is it on? You can hear me? Okay, good. I'm standing. So let's see. Is this better? There you can see me. I have a couple folks who are coming up to help me today. So we're talking about creating, and I've got some helpers that are going to help me pass out some things. So each of you take some sparklies. So you're going to hand these out to everybody. Everybody can take like 2 or 3 fuzzy sticks. Here, I need a couple myself. Yeah. Doesn't matter, just grab a couple colors, whatever. There you go. 2 or 3 or 4 fuzzy sticks, as we call them. So we're talking about creating. We've been talking about creating as our theme all month. And we've got these wonderful folks in our community who've been sharing with us who create, like Alix and Jenny today. And these are, I like to call them fuzzy sticks, but what are these? What's the old-fashioned name? Pipe cleaners. And what were they used for? To clean a pipe. They're not really used for that nowadays. They're used for making cool things. Does anybody know what they're made out of? Fuzzy stuff? Wire. They're made out of metal. There's like wire inside. If anybody's ever been poked by one, they can kind of bite you sometimes. They get a little sharp. So we're actually going to do some metal work. Metal work. So as we know, Alix does beautiful metal work. I'm part of the wedding band upgrade club. I have a Alix Heart wedding band. I got it upgrade for my 25th wedding anniversary, which I absolutely love. And in talking about creating, this is a really wonderful, easy way to create. Everybody can create with this, right? It's easy, friendly. We don't need any special tools. You've got them right here in your hand, so you can just start creating when you get them in your hand. But we're going to co-create. So I brought in this branch. We had a cherry tree, Mary Cherry, we called her. That was Paul, my husband named her. Unfortunately, somebody else, like some sort of critter, decided to move in, and she didn't survive. But she's surviving in life as an art piece, because sometimes when something doesn't survive, like the critter ate it, but we're using its life beyond that. You know, this is still a beautiful branch. So we're taking this beautiful branch, and we're going to co-create with this. We're going to take this beautiful branch, and we're going to take our fuzzy sticks, our pieces of wire, and we're going to co-create together. So I want each of you to take this piece of wire and make a shape or something. You decide. And we're going to add that. Wesley, can we bring some back over here? Raise your hand if you still need some fuzzy sticks. Maybe you need more. There's plenty. We've got folks running around with fuzzy sticks. And create something that we can add to and decorate this structure, so we can co-create together. Why are we doing this? Because we're crazy. Yes, yes. There's been, I happen to be online in this wonderful space called TikTok. I'm sure you've heard stuff about TikTok. Good, the bad, and the ugly about TikTok. But one of the things that I find very interesting, and there's a lot of discussion about spiritual spaces and a lot of deconstruction going on. And I follow a lot of UUs on there. There are UU ministers and UU religious educators and other UU folks in those spaces. And folks are asking, like, what do UU churches do? You don't have a creed. You don't have a dogma. So what connects you? It's all about our community. It's about our shared questioning. It's our shared curiosity. It's our shared wondering. It's our shared covenant. Come on up, guys. Bring your fuzzy sticks up here. Bring them up here. Let's come on up and create together. You guys can start working on putting these fuzzy sticks on here. Come on up. All the kids can come on up and start. And if there's any adults or any folks who have mobility issues and want to have somebody else bring your piece up, raise your hand, and we will have young folks come help. We're going to be building these in here. Sometimes they're big pieces. Oh, here's a star. So it's the co-creating that we do together. And I'm thinking a lot about Summit. And over the last 3 years, this whole COVID time, we have done so much co-creating. I don't even know if we all realize how much co-creating we have done. Because some of it has been sort of hidden, right? It's kind of been hidden. Not everybody has seen all the behind-the-scenes stuff that has gone on. Like learning how to use Zoom. That was hard. I can tell you that was hard. Huh? Was Zoom easy? Really easy. Like, the digital natives have no problem. The digital natives have no problem. Right? These guys are digital natives. But those of us, video games, Zoom, all that, you guys are digital natives. Like, that's a language that you grew up with. But some of us had to learn a new language. And that took some co-creating. We needed some help. Like, for some of us, there was a lot of hard work going on with that. So that was a co-creation. The co-creation of how to do the services. Our Sunday service committee has done so much co-creation, so much incredible co-creation. Like having to figure out who is leading, who is substituting. Like even today, Nancy needed a sub, and we had a sub come in last minute. Joe jumped in. Just having each other's back. all these things, I mean, you don't see all the emails, I do. All the things that are happening. Our board and all the work that they've done. Just the co-creation that has happened to keep this happening, keep this space working. We co-create all the time. So now is our opportunity to have a visual of our co-creation. So I would like to invite folks to come on up and bring up what you have made. Can we make a little space for folks to come on up? Hey, you guys, can you bring your pipe cleaners back? Oh, bring your fuzzy sticks over here. Let's move over here. Oh, nice. There. You want this one away? You want this over here? Okay. An infinity star. Okay. Look at this. All right, the chain is on there. I tried to leave some little nubs on here. We can put things down here. We can add things down here. All right, raise your hand if you need some help. Anybody need help? All right, guys, if you see the hands up, you want to go help bring up whatever they've made and hang it on the tree? Adults are welcome to come on up. All right. Elizabeth, can you help me pick up these little ones? Let's bring them up. Oh, beautiful. You want to hang that? Let's co-create this tree together. There's a spider and a star. Oh, and a yin-yang. Look at this. Beautiful. Cool thing about these is you can twist and bend and make them stick in different ways. They're right here. I just moved them so people wouldn't step on them. And for those of you who are not here physically, think about how you co-create and how you contribute. You're co-creating just by being with us digitally. We're part of our community, whether you're here physically or digitally. It takes all of us. Now, I always think whoever invented these little fuzzy sticks for cleaning pipes 100 years or whatever ago, we had no idea that they would become this amazing art form material that is used in this wonderful way to turn a cherry branch into a rainbow tree co-creation. Twist. You can twist. You can tuck them down in there. Did you find a spot, Margaret? You need some help? We can take any extras back because we'll use them with our project we're doing back in RE. Yeah, that's good. Got a few more to add on. Then we're going to step back and we're going to admire what we've co-created together. So Unitarian Universalism is a covenantal faith, right? We co-create through covenant, which is an agreement and how we're going to be in spiritual community together, sort of like this tree of rainbow shapes where everybody has contributed together to make the whole. Everybody has put a little bit of themselves into it, just like everybody puts a little bit of themselves into some. Some put more than others, We all give what we can. We all contribute in different ways, right? And that's what makes it so beautiful. It's the co-creation that we do together. So take a minute to admire our beautiful work. One more, got 2 more pieces going on. Last pieces. Okay. All right. All right. What do you think? Did we co-create beautifully? All right. Okay. And kids, if we want to finish other things, and we can bring them in later and add them on. So can you help me lead our children's our affirmation? Ready? We are Unitarian Universalists, a people of open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. And now we are going to go outside where Sarah Duvall has brought clay for us to, we're going to go do some clay work today. We're going to get creative and messy outside. So all right. So children, I'm inviting us. We're going to head out that door today. We're going to head out and play with the clay. So let's grab any extra fuzzy sticks and head on out, guys. You can bring what you're working on with you. We'll bring it back in later. Wonderful. Let's bring it with.
Thank you, Mary. So please stand if you're willing and able to sing hymn number 1031, and it's 1031, not 1013, in the green hymnal, Filled with Loving Kindness. This meditation, if you are proud of this fellowship, become its advocate. If you are concerned for its future, share its message. If its values resonate deep within you, give it a measure of your devotion. This fellowship cannot survive without your faith, your confidence, your enthusiasm. Its destiny, the larger hope, rests in your hands. Reverend Dr. Michael A. Schuler. And now we will have our reflection. Jenny first.
I'm going to try to read this off of my computer because our printer's on the fritz. Okay. I'm going to sort of it's a sort of a biographical little thing about my journey to an awareness of what inspires me. And even though I think as children we're sort of in touch with that innately, with our inspiration innately, as the world encroaches on us, as we get older, it sort of gets submerged. And if we're fortunate and diligent, we can find our way back to that childlike awareness. So I'm going to share my journey in that way, and I hope I don't bore everybody. I'm going to try technology. I'm a Luddite and proud of it, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so I just press it's on. Press it on, little blue light, and then I go top button, bing, bing. There it is. Okay. All right. Well, this was actually a fairly recent thing, but it's kind of a symbolic of the whole process because this is titled "A Prisoner of My Own Expectations," and that's sort of the way I felt a few years ago, just like that. Don't really need to say anything more. Those are paint brushes that make the bars on this piece, and little dabs of paint. So that's kind of the idea. Top button, this button. No, that went backwards, forwards. Okay, is this little button here? Center button should be forward. Center button. Oh, okay, there we go, okay. Cake. Yeah, cake. I started doing, this is an example of a fairly recent cake as well, for a friend's 80th birthday, someone who loved the ocean. And the first cake I made was when I was 5 with a cake mix. Okay, and then this one. Yeah, more cake. This is a cake that was made for Summit a few years ago for, I think, our 25th anniversary. Therefore, gold, well, even though it had been silver. But anyway, it's money and give us money kind of cake. And that's sort of in the process. All right. Okay, this is kind of weird. This isn't, okay, well, anyway, we'll go fast. This is a logo, one of my logo designs. Another logo design for a hotel, a lodge in Tanzania. For a friend, a dear, dear, dear friend from college who was a veterinarian, and a business logo for her. Another logo for a conservancy in Tanzania. This is something I did for a friend in Tanzania, a woman who owned the lodge that I became very dear friends with. And it was originally a bar scene with animals drinking drinks. And then I changed it a few years ago when they got Wi-Fi and everybody started using their phones instead of talking to each other. Birds, little bee eaters. A cardinal, that was Christmas cardinal, last year's Christmas card. Sunflower. Go Ukraine. Our lovely dog, our lovely brown Labrador, who passed away in 2011. And this is the Breining's daughter's wedding portrait for her. And this is a young man I befriended in Tanzania. He was you can kind of tell he was a bit surly, but had an interesting face. So he sat for me. So this was was a portrait that I did while he sat. It was about 20 minutes. And this is the last project I worked on in Tanzania before I came home. It was for Tarangire National Park. It was part of a large display for visitor centers. There were 6 metal panels. This was made out of copper panel that was repoussed and etched and patinas and found objects and things like that. And I'd never worked with metal before, so it was a pretty big deal for me. Here's a close-up. That's the installation. This is the close-up. So the elephant's repoussé. There's a little square panel that is a photo that's enameled on metal. I didn't do that. It was professionally done here in the United States. And then patinas, and the idea was that there were 6 panels, each one described some aspect of the ecosystem within the park. And this you will be seeing next week. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, knock on little pieces of wood. This is the donor panel for Summit. 3 years in the making, and finally I think it's finished. And so this is made up of small pieces of scrap wood from my brother's workshop. I didn't modify them. I just did gold leaf on a big panel and then placed these on top in a way that makes sense to me. And some of them are already engraved with the names of donors to Summit, and the rest await your name. I think that's it. That's it. Okay, back, forward. Okay, all right. So I already said that my idea of what inspires us, I think everybody, but is love. And that's kind of a broad and general term, but I think, as I said, when we're children, we are connected to that. And until something injures us in some way, that we start to hide from love. And I don't know why that happens, but it seems to happen. Oh, stop it. It's going on by itself. Okay. So I think all of us in this room and everyone everywhere were born to be creative. It takes many forms. So-called arts, writing and painting and sculpture and poetry and music and interpreting music. Gardening, child rearing, any kind of problem solving is creative. My form of creative language appeared to be the ability to express myself through art, in particular drawing. And at the age of 3, this urge was discovered with crayons on the wall above my bed. I did a mural of people smoking pipes, and the smoke would come out and go in curlicues up and make another head that was smoking a pipe with more smoke coming out, and like that. I guess I must have been fascinated with my parents' cigarette smoke, curling around as they smoked. So that was my first mural. I would draw pretty obsessively throughout elementary school, making and illustrating little books with anthropomorphic horses. I loved horses, as most little girls do. When competitive challenges by other kids to drawing duels began to stifle that ability, fear of failure entered, and I began to copy photographs instead. And I got well enough to doing that to impress people, which seems to be the point sometimes when you're little. And I loved the Beatles and became proficient at copying their photographs, and imagination took a back seat to skill. I think anybody can copy a photograph, but I really think anybody can copy a photograph if you work at it. Finally, one day in senior high school art class, I got up the courage to do a painting wholly from my imagination. By then, I loved cooking and I loved eggplant. Go figure. So I painted a fantasy purple landscape with eggplant growing on trees. The teacher called it sentimental, and that was the end of that. In the 1970s, Grossmont College had a fantastic art department, and the 3 years there were well spent, but by the time UC Davis handed me an art major diploma, I felt like an imposter. I had nothing to say, so how could I call myself an artist? In 1972, a trip to Africa with my mother and brother to visit her sister and brother-in-law changed my life in a different way. That uncle was a professor of ecology at Texas A&M University, doing a 2-year radio collar project on the wildebeest migration in the Serengeti. We were privileged to stay in that beautiful heart of the Serengeti at the Research Institute in a village called Serenera for 6 weeks. I so wanted someday to have the opportunity to live there. I remember sitting in the Land Rover kind of going, God, if I could just come back here and live for a while. But it was a scientific community, and I was as far from being a scientist as one could be. Little did I know that years later, this desire would be fulfilled. Meanwhile, I had become passionate about food. And with cooking, I didn't mind failing. Failing was a kind of encouragement almost. You know, whatever, you could always eat whatever you made, and if it wasn't, and you had to eat it to find out what was wrong with it. So it was kind of, I found that really creative, trying to figure out how to make it better. I turned to cooking as a way of making a living and spent the next 20 years or so creating with food. I did a lot of recipe development for a variety of restaurants. I was a sous chef, and I did some teaching at Grossmont College in food service management. When that too became competitive, it was the kind of the early or the mid 80s, and it was a whole star chef thing was starting to happen, and everything had to be different just for the sake of being different, you know, and it sort of became too much pressure. And I was also never fast enough. During 3 subsequent trips to Africa, I used my cooking abilities and skills to make friends and connections. The pace of life was slower there, and since I was so slow, I figured I could do all right there. And I decided to move to Tanzania when I was 42. Life begins at 40. I'd been offered a management job at a small lodge on a coffee farm in Tanzania called Gibbs Farm. It was about an hour's drive from Serengeti, and occasionally assisted the kitchen at a sister lodge on the edge of the park. I did dabble in art, creating logos for both lodges and drawings for their brochures. One day at Gibbs, I remember this so clearly, it suddenly occurred to me, I remembered that I had a gift, and that it had nothing to do with me, which is what a gift is. It had been given to me from somewhere, and though I considered myself an agnostic/atheist, the thought came to me that if I didn't make use of this gift, my art, it was like flipping off God. This was a huge shift for me, and it felt like at that moment everything else shifted too. Events in my life began to point me in a different direction, towards a spiritual approach to life. Another year of hotel work until 16-hour days in the tropical heat and humidity with no time off left me fried inside and out. So I returned to Arusha, which is a little town. It's a safari hub in the northern part of Tanzania, determined to get back to doing art. I'd been in town less than 12 hours when a fellow I'd met on a trip to Serengeti 10 months before approached me, saying he'd been looking all over for me. He was in charge of organizing the creation of a new visitor center in Serenera, in Serengeti, just a 5-minute walk from where we had stayed with my aunt and uncle 25 years before. He said, "How would you like to paint a mural in the Serengeti?" Who, me? don't you want so-and-so? There was another guy who was a well-known artist. I said, no, we want you. Well, that was like a miracle to me. I mean, you know, as I told you, 25 years before, I thought I'd have to be a scientist to go and live there, and now I got to go there and be an artist. I hadn't picked up a brush since receiving that diploma at UC Davis in 1976. This was 1997. Now I would be designing a whole room display on early man, you know, or whatever they are, all those early men that were human beings that were found in the Serengeti. Their bones were found in the Serengeti. Now, yeah, okay, and a 10 by 10 foot mural that would be seen by hundreds of people. Facing this daunting task, all I could do was to ask that the word be guided by love. The love within me for this very special place on the planet. And I figured that way I couldn't go wrong. It allowed me to live and work in Saranera for 2 months. During this period, I had several significant dreams and really began to feel that I was being guided and that I could trust this guidance. The next 6 years offered work in a variety of creative forms, murals for hotels, restaurants, and clinics, logos and brochure artwork for safari companies, portraits for friends and families, and the occasional wedding cake, and some menu consultation. I began to notice how I felt when working on these projects, a kind of elation, the way one feels when one is falling in love. It seemed the common denominator in all the projects was love. It was the motivator as well as part of the process. During my time in Arusha, an exceptional experience was given to me. I participated in a 5-day resident course on icon painting at a convent on the outskirts of town. It was taught by an Orthodox priest from California, of all places. Before the painting began, we would quiet our minds. The priest would swing the incense thingy and purify the air or whatever. And we would pray to the patron saint of icon painting to be guided to the truth in form and spirit of the image we were creating. It was like stepping through a portal which the icon represents. It opened me up to the idea of a sort of pool of consciousness, a vast resource, the nature of which is love, and the idea of stepping outside of the personal self to access this pool. This is what I would call going with the flow of inspiration. Allowing, receiving, and sharing through actualized thoughts, feelings, art, beauty, and kind interactions. It's like an adventure, and adventures require an open, creative mind. Now for me, a project, whatever form it takes, begins rather like that, with a conscious dedication to allow love to guide my thoughts and my hands, and that the peace upon which I work bring joy to all who look upon it.
Wow, I admire Jenny's just explosive, diverse creativity. It's really wonderful. Are we still on screen? There we go. And you said it's the bottom one. So, and I'm very grateful to be here with my friends and everyone here at Summit to have the opportunity. For me, form is really, I use the word language really as a non-verbal analogy to expression. You know, when you don't really aren't facile with the English language or the language you're born in, sometimes another quote language unquote steps up. And I also hope to share sort of how the work has become sort of a conversation with the material as well. So the most common questions I get, I thought I'd lead this with like the Q&A. So people say like, how did you choose art? I get this a lot, and maybe other artists do as well. And I mean like art or jewelry or metal. And I want to say, I didn't choose it. I have no idea. It's like, it's not a choice sometimes. It's something that happens to you or you find. And in my case, I really was struggling in school. I was just deathly shy, dyslexic kid with no sort of value in the school system where I had art, and art was it. It was already there. And so it really wasn't a choice. And then, metal. Well, you just got your hands on metal. And you just drove here in metal or rode a bike on metal. Like, I have metal in my body right now. Like, metal is awesome. Have you noticed? So again, I didn't choose metal. It was like, it was there. And metal became that expressive material that I could actually say things that didn't have words, because it does everything. Metal does, it melts, it adds, it subtracts, it forms, it can be soft, it can be flexible, it can be hard. It's not just what you imagine is like sheet metal. It can do everything. In fact, it's a lot like clay. I wish Sarah was here too. So it can compress, it does so many things. So another question I get is like, where do you get your ideas? And again, I want to say, I have no idea. But apparently there's this total like Rolodex of stuff and experiences and whatever that's in there. And it may be from how long ago that I was totally obsessed with this thing, and it like so many years later, centuries later, it comes out in something. I can't explain that. And that's the love piece and the mystery piece that we don't even have answers for. But, if we're able to get past ourselves and our inhibitions, we let it out. It's like letting it out. It's not, I don't feel like I'm as much a participant, in the process. So, for example, the seaweed is in the leaf pendant, and some of the shapes. Remember the first time you saw a Venus flytrap? You might remember. So this is Venus flytrap made in gold, and those are false eyelashes and a little diamond set of beads as a trapped bug. And the expression has a lot of content. This is another thing amazing about jewelry. It holds so much. We put so much value into material, gold or precious material, and we put so much message into it. So this is about feminism or not. It's about the entrapment. I mean, you can fill in the blanks of what I might be talking about or what I might be suggesting that you can interpret. So it's funny that the things that come out are familiar to me. And I put this on the intro piece, and this is an example of really, when you think of it, it's so bold. It's so out there. And yet I am so shy and so not that. And yet it came out of me. And that's a highly collaborative piece. I collaborated with the fashion couturier, the photographer, the model, et cetera. I think part of what I'm doing is putting what I admire into the piece, and then I acquire that by putting that on myself. It's not myself, and yet I want it. I want to acquire it, and it doesn't need me, but I can relate to it. I can have a symbiotic relationship with the piece by making it a wearable piece or about a wearable piece. So this series is inspired by arthropods, so crabs and spiders and that kind of thing. It's not like I admire spiders, but some of what they're doing and how they move, and anyway. I do, it doesn't matter what material, this is in wood. Again, sort of antlers, but that proud strength and power and defensiveness is another thing. It's another sort of female issue of the power. So my thesis in school was aposomatic ornament. So the appearance of defense, not necessarily being defensive, but the appearance, the outward show of power and defense as alluring at the same time. So it's about being a paradox, where the thing that is keeping you from touching it is also the thing that attracts you to it. Again, so obsessed with nature. So this is another thing, the nature and the experience and the obsession with the non-human world is in all my work, even the engagement rings, you know? So here's starfish, and here's a later construction. I thought you'd like to see how you build a piece. Very direct. I do indirect and very direct. This is, well, multi-material. So I tend to think form first and then figure out how to make it. And I had an opportunity to do a art meets fashion event in San Diego and learned how to do sewing. And the metal part is the jewelry she's wearing on her head, some metal on the shoes I made, and the jellyfish top actually bubbles and bounces because it has springy metal inside. So just had to show that. This is inspired by hawks and eagles and large raptors, where you can watch how they fly and the tips of the wings fly up. It's fairly direct. The whole necklace is articulated, so it kind of can flap while you wear it. So it's all segmented. Also from feathers, I did a series, a collection about different forms of feathers. This is a philo plume. So another question, how did I learn about creativity? What kind of environment did I get to grow up in that fostered this? And really, I was very fortunate, even though my parents did not suffer the dyslexia and were very intellectual and really didn't know what to do with me when I was suffering so badly in school, was they did foster my creativity and my obsession with being out in nature. And without that, I would have not found any value in what I could do, because I was shy and quiet, fearful, and yet there was this one thing, and they allowed that and encouraged that without knowing what you do with it in life. Like, it didn't fit any molds that exist. And so I say that to people because you don't have to fit. You can figure it out. And we tend to figure it out. So it really was fortunate that I grew up encouraged in my art as well. And I have to say that because they really didn't know what else to do with me, I think. And then Mark brought this up. He's like, what does it feel like for you when you're in the creative process? What is your experience in it, designing or making? And that's why I put on a little bit of a video here. I think if I hit it again, it should play. Here's an example of the experience. I hit metal all day sometimes. Like, I got the guns to prove it here, folks. You know? I mean, so, and that's the process. So the process is, you know, again, where does it come from? Sometimes there's, for example, this is for a show. So I'm going to have to fill a gallery with work. And so I funneled all the sort of inspirations and old sketchbook stuff. So I work it out on paper and I turn it around in paper. And then I work it out in like a prototype. Sometimes that's cut out paper to move it into the three-dimensional world. And then I use a blank that I've used from the paper and put that into metal and cut out a sheet of metal in this case. And then the rest is the conversation with the material. So what it might appear, especially when you think of metal and you drive a car and the hood of the car is shaped like this and the whatever, you feel like you might have to force the material. It's like we know what we want out of the material, we force it. But actually, the material has a voice in the conversation. And I particularly love that voice. I love the look of the material, the look of the hammers on the material. To me, it gives it life. And the material will actually lend itself. So you start hammering and it wants to give you this beautiful arch or curve. You don't kill that. You let that out. And that's part of you're finding it in yourself, but you're also open to listening to what it wants to contribute. And so here's the finished piece. And here it is on with the rest of the outfit. And this is a collaboration with a fashion designer, a photographer, and a fabulous model as well. And if, Erin, you can pull up the video, I was going to end on another collaborative piece to show you. So metal doesn't have to be static. You know, we make sculpture, but I want it to live. And that's another reason I'm still obsessed with putting it on the body, is so that it's animated. And that's the symbiosis. It can animate with your motions and you can acquire what it provides. So here's just a tiny clip of a collaboration with a dancer.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Alix. You guys are just amazing. You just open our minds in unexpected ways, our perspectives and stuff, and I really look forward to the Q&A. Now we're at the part of our offertory and offering. We are a fellowship supported entirely by the voluntary generosity of our members and friends, and we greatly appreciate our faithful pledgers who continue to keep up their monthly contributions. It is now easier than ever to contribute to our virtual plate today. The link can be found in the chat box and will take you directly to the donation location. And now we will gratefully accept your generous donations during the musical interlude.
I'm going to play for you just the theme and a couple variations of Bach's Goldberg variations. I like the theme gold in the title, but also it's an amazing piece. Glenn Gould, it comes at the end of Bach's career. He puts a whole encyclopedia of all of his types of compositions, dances, counterpoint, fugues, free composition staccatos. He puts them all together and 30 variations, which is too long for this. But I like Glenn's quote, Gould's quote. He says, he was exalting upon a pinnacle of potency.
Please stand if you're willing and able. We'll sing hymn number 207, Earth Was Given as a Garden, in your gray hymnal. And Karen will play it through once, so we'll just sing verse number 1. Please be seated. I'd just like you all to just take a look around you. I mean, the sanctuary's filling. It's really nice. I mean, Jack and Mary Ellen Chu were here. Ellie Dotz is here. Greg Williams is here. Ted Duvall is here. I mean, we even have a lot of newcomers here from the last services we've had, which is really great to have you go back. So thank you. So as we close our service by extinguishing our chalice, I invite you to stay afterwards for a time of community gathering and to share joys and concerns or ask any questions of our speakers, followed by refreshments in the salon. I also invite you to come back next week, or last week, with the theme of creativity, where we will welcome Tom Biggert and Rin Corbet to our pulpit. And now Jenny Sarr will recite the closing words, followed by the circle song.
Imagine the ocean or the cheetah, the sun or the moon, or God himself attempting to learn what they are. They are the same as you. All exist within you. You are the universe itself.